surprised everybody. Ron Paul was right there. What did you, from a Ron Paul supporter standpoint, what did you expect to happen?
Well, first, there's some good and bad. It was a bittersweet result because now I wasn't working with the '08 Ron Paul campaign. I didn't really find my political identity until 18 months ago, really. But then it just really hit me, I think, and I really started to get into it. But compared to '08, of course, it was a dramatic improvement. But the expectations were legitimately to win the Iowa caucus, and that did not happen. You can have there's many theories for why it didn't shake out that way, but it was a frustration. We expected to do better, but at the same time, it is progress. We're still very much in it, and I think everyone expects to make a good showing at New Hampshire. Currently, Mitt Romney has a pretty strong lead there, but Paul has a pretty distinctive second-place ranking, and then it's kind of trails. I think John Huntsman's third at 9%, so I think
he's been living there.
He has basically, and the thing is, he's probably going to try to take votes away from Romney. They're very similar in their views.
Why did the Ron Paul campaign expect to win in Iowa?
Well, because I think the Ron Paul campaign had the best ground organization. I think they had the biggest volunteer staff and the most active staff. Young people, very energetic, and it just certainly had the ground numbers. And unlike '08, the campaign had money. It was grassroots raised from private donations. I myself donated to the Ron Paul campaign several times. So it had all the tools to make a good run. And Iowa is a unique place like that. And, of course, Fox News, I think, threatened the people. If Ron Paul wins, Iowa doesn't count anymore. Don't know how exactly that counts. But I will never be as smart as the mainstream media. I've come to realize that. It's just that they were Paul's. The thing is, as you probably saw, every candidate surged to the top and then dropped. It was crazy the way it worked like that. Yeah. Where Paul, he never surged. There might have been a mini surge at some point, but he grew steadily, didn't really decline. So it looked like it was going to be the slow and steady won the race kind of thing, and he of course didn't get beat out brutally, but yeah, he didn't end up winning the top.
Ryan Pomerantz was working in the Iowa caucuses, spent about a week in Iowa and partially at the Ron Paul headquarters, but also you said you were doing door-to-door in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. What was the experience like?
Usually it was quite positive. There was only one man who was obviously angry. And then there was, of course, people who said, "Oh no, not voting for Ron Paul." But the great thing is when people step out and talk to you, and most of the time, we heard, you're the first campaign people that have visited us, and they didn't sound disappointed either. So that was another reason where I heard it right from the citizens from their mouths that we were the first to visit them, and there's people that are on the fence between two candidates, and of course, to hear why they liked Ron Paul and why they liked another candidate, and then you kind of talk to them for a while, and then there's people from elderly to middle-aged men to young people closer to my age, and veterans who were still on the fence between candidates, and that's really good to be able to talk to people face to face, hear their concerns. I'm not reading off a page just saying, okay, blah 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 blah, this is why you should vote for Paul. It's really talking to people, hearing their concerns. And, and Paul maybe won't be for everyone, but I think he has a lot more appeal than what the media and what the other candidates, of course, are leading on.
Yeah, this is not, and you're not making this up. The media certainly has, they've got him pigeonholed. The mainstream media has got him pigeonholed as kind of a kook.
Yes,
and that's how he is. It's how he started out. That's how he's been That's how it's been since he ran the last time. He's always been looked at as kind of a kook.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if I have to be a conspiracy theorist to think that maybe there's some kind of tie between a candidate whose campaign is funded by citizens like you and I, rather than corporate organizations, which is what runs the media. So there's kind of a tie between those things. And yes, they're trying to make him out to be a kook. But the thing is, if following the Constitution is kooky, then I hope I spend the rest of my life on a funny farm, because that's what Paul does. He's certainly not a tyrant. When you know where what he stands for, which is the Constitution, then you're basically calling our forefathers kooks too. The way I see it.
So as you move forward, and we talked earlier about New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. New Hampshire is the next big contest, or the next contest of any kind, really. Mm-hmm. Obviously, John Huntsman is taking up residence in New Hampshire, more or less. Mm-hmm. Mitt Romney appears to be looking good in New Hampshire. How does Ron Paul look again?
Well, Ron Paul, okay, I believe Romney's polling around 40% right now, and because he's a clear front runner, he's going to be the clear target. So that, I think they could really mine away at him. Multiple candidates, it's just going to be a full onslaught on him, I think. And then Huntsman, yeah, he could be like Santorum and make a surge, but I think New Hampshire, and it's not just I think, experts say it too. And by that I mean the media. So I guess I don't know. I'm sounding hypocritical here, but they say New Hampshire's a lot different than Iowa. Iowa's very evangelical. Whoever plays the religious card, not even necessarily who is religious, whoever just claims to be and does their political ads as such. New Hampshire's much more independent-minded. I think there's more of a libertarian movement. I think the constitutional conservative set of beliefs appeals to a lot of people there. Romney's spent a lot of time there, and proximity-wise, he's much closer to there. So that's why I think he has a commanding lead there. He also has an endless stream of money, but I think Ron Paul appeals a lot to the people there. It's not necessarily a religion thing. It's more of an individualism kind of philosophy there that I think Ron Paul's believes.
Sure. Yeah. If you look throughout and again, we're talking to Ryan Pomerenning. He was a member of, he worked inside the Ron Paul campaign during the Iowa caucuses, and has got that kind of view of the Iowa caucuses that obviously held last night. Mitt Romney, the winner. And if you have questions or comments, 785-7914 right here on the Crosstalk PM. You can also send me an instant message, talktomitchnow@yahoo.com, or an email, mitch@1410wizm.com. If you look at Ron Paul and look at how he's played in the past, it seems as though he doesn't connect necessarily with people in the Southern Bible Belt. And those votes are going to be important as well as we move forward. And try to look at this subjectively as possible.
Okay, yeah, I will certainly do that.
As that campaign moves forward, do you guys, is there enough dedication to this guy, who, as we've already noted, is labeled by the media as generally kind of an old kook? If he doesn't play well in several states, does that campaign stick around? Do you stay dedicated to that campaign all the way? Wisconsin primary is not till April.
Right.
Does he? Do you hope that he sticks around and sits through, goes all the way through like that? Because from everything that I've heard from Ron Paul supporters, I know you're Ron Paul supporters, but you don't see another conservative in the field.
Well, and that's basically it. And the Republican Party. A lot, the media pundits, they want to say, well, if Paul's going to fracture the Republican Party, and then it's just going to be 4 more years of Obama. And this might tick a lot of people off, and this is coming from me. This isn't coming from necessarily Paul himself. This is my personal view. But, if you look at Bush, you look at Obama, and you look at a guy like Romney, when you stop listening to the political ads and just what they say in their speeches, and you look at the records, not a great deal of difference. They all, and I can't speak for Romney because he's not president right now, but when you look at, Bush was a conservative, he believed in cutting taxes, but he increased spending, and that created deficits, and he got us involved in 2 wars, and we don't have to hash out right now whether the wars were necessary. We don't have to get into that, but he created a lot of debt, and then Obama came in, and Obama was supposed to be a softie, but he's proven to be quite militant, regardless of what the Republicans want to say. I think if you switched his party, and they'd probably say he's incredibly militant. It's just it's whatever the media wants to bark, but. Okay. And he's created more debt as well. The records, I don't think, are that different. Okay, you want to complain about Obamacare? What about the No Child Left Behind Act that doubled the size of the Department of Education? They were both big government guys who have kept us entangled in wars that the majority of the country doesn't want us tangled up in anymore. And you could argue that in a couple instances didn't want us involved in the first place. I think Afghanistan, people wanted us to get involved in that. It was the nation building where people got disgruntled with that. So, but I think I'm kind of babbling and going off on a tangent here, and I'm sorry for that. But and to your argument about, or your question about how Paul might not do well in the Bible Belt. Well, if it's Paul and Romney's probably not going to do well in the Bible Belt either. Traditionally, he hasn't. And honestly, I'm not a person that makes a big issue out of religion. I don't mind that he's a Mormon. I don't mind that.
But do other Republicans or conservatives or Republican conservatives or whoever you are, will others do the same thing? Will others evaluate him in the same kind of way? Because a lot of there is a lot of the conservative base does evaluate on the basis of religion.
Yes, they do, and that's why when you say Paul may not do well in the South, and if it's him and Romney, I say Romney's not going to do well in the South.
Okay.
And if they're going to really appeal to traditional conservatism, I think Paul really is now. Are you saying if people will stick with Paul? Or I'm not sure if I caught the question.
Despite his, will backers of the Ron Paul campaign? Let's get back to that question. Backers of the Ron Paul campaign, even if he doesn't do well in Michigan and in South Carolina and states like that, even if he doesn't do well, I'm trying to think of the big early primaries. Can't think of what they are right now.
South Carolina,
sure, South Carolina,
Nevada,
obviously huge. Okay, Nevada, that's another. Well,
Minnesota's coming
Nevada
up pretty soon too.
Well. But even if he doesn't do well in those, he finishes somewhere far down the pack. Do you want him to stick around? Do you want him to, obviously, do you think he still can maintain a campaign, keep it moving forward, even through Wisconsin, which is until April 3rd?
Yeah, well, and, honestly, I don't think anybody in the campaign's really thought about that, because it seems like everybody's saying, well, what if Paul can't keep up the campaign? I guess he doesn't have the big banks like Romney, so nobody's questioning whether Romney will have enough money. But, Perry's considering dropping out, and he had a ton of money. But Paul does have a steady stream of money, and he's organized, unlike in 08, and he has a very dedicated base that is expanding. Is it exploding? No, but it's growing gradually and doesn't show any signs of shrinking.
Why is it expanding?
Why? Well, I think the voice of liberty appeals to people. It's not... And you laugh at that, but
just when you say it, you're so invigorated and passionate about
it. And that just like every other person, because when you listen to the message, sometimes the news Paul gives you isn't always good, but that's sometimes what you want to hear, because I think there's a bit of the people aren't completely stupid. I think they know that the country's in a bad situation, and when somebody says, "Yeah, we're in some trouble here," and their solution doesn't sound like the same crap from every other run-of-the-mill candidate, they say, okay, and he talks about the Constitution. He's not saying, I'm going to give you this money or this program, or there's substance there. That's what really appealed to me. It's basically about, and the Paul supporters are not people that want a free handout. Contrary to what Gingrich says, it's not a bunch of people that just want to legalize drugs. Okay, I mean the only paraphernalia I really saw in the cabins at our camp was books.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me ask you this: take yourself out of the role of campaign worker supporter and look at it as a strategist.
Yes.
Moving forward, is there something that Ron Paul needs to do in order to anything he needs to change or anything he needs to do to really effectually win? I mean, does he stay the course, or does he need to maybe change how his message is delivered? How does he get the media to be on his side, if nothing else? Do you want that?
Well, I don't think the media needs to hold his hand and say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, but it'd help if I think the mainstream media didn't look at him as kind of a kooky guy.
Yeah, it would help, but at the same time, I don't think he needs to change. I don't think he should change it, because it is his consistency and just his how he will not relent, how he sticks to his message, and he has for so long. That's the basis of his appeal, because the politics has become such a pandering game that people don't know who to trust anymore. It's just, okay, well, we're going to shift gears now and try to scoop up the evangelical vote. All of a sudden, this candidate's a huge Christian now. Never heard this person speak a word about it for the first month or two of the campaign, but all of a sudden now they're just, a church-going person. And if that's genuinely who they are, fine, own it. But Paul, he's been consistent in his message, and I think if he tried to change, I think that would alienate the base that is growing. But it would be nice if the media at least gave him equal representation and just reported the news. It's not news anymore; it's news-themed entertainment. But at the same time, I think when everybody's bashing this guy, it also is a point of intrigue for people, and they wonder why are they after him so much. Yeah. And young people especially, and people over 60 might say young people don't know a thing about it, but
he does have a lot of young people in his camp.
Yes, he does, and I challenge I challenge people of other age groups to sit down and talk with the average person that was at this campaign. They have brains to burn. They've read a book or two in their lifetime, and they're
good experience. The caucuses?
Yeah, absolutely. It's work. It can be stressful, but I've been told the best things in life usually come with a little bit of stress. It's what makes it worth getting up in the morning.
Yeah. All right. Ryan Pomerenning worked in the Ron Paul campaign. Will probably continue to do so, I'm assuming.
To the best of my ability, I have a semester of school.